Hello everybody, my name is Saurabh Chatterjee. Today we are going to talk about how to take care of your camera. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the hood. You see, this is called the hood. You can take it out, and this is the original position on how you can keep the hood. But whenever you are using the camera, it is always better that you take it out and then use it like this. I see a lot of people don't use the hood at all, but hood is something very important for the protection of your camera. Why? Because you see, if I bang this on a wall or something, the inside part is always protected. Even if you don't have a filter, it is absolutely okay if you have the hood on all the time. The other thing is, it will reduce the flare in your pictures. The artifacts that you get from the sun, you will be able to avoid that. It's just like when you go out in the sun and the sun is really irritating you, you wear a cap or use your hands like this to stop the rays, right? So this is the cap for the lens. As I was telling you, this is a very good protection. I have seen so many times that people dropping their cameras. I remember one moment where a gentleman dropped the camera from his hand. The hood broke, but nothing happened to the lens. So it was quite an expensive lens, a 24-70 2.8 Nikon. That is quite a heavy lens with a D850 camera, but absolutely nothing happened to the lens. Only the hood broke, right? So the hood can take all the damage. So whenever you are using the camera, always use the hood like this, and if not in use, you can always fold it and keep it like this, right? And there is a lock. Whenever you're using the hood, I'll tell you one thing from my experience is that if you don't lock it properly, you will see the edges of the hood seeing in your pictures, or it can fall down and you will lose it. I have lost a lot of hoods, so be careful. Whenever you see, you have to lock it carefully. So every hood has a locking system, and generally with the 1855 lens that you get with your camera, the hood is not supplied. So you can buy a hood for yourself. It's not very expensive, but it is one of the best investments that you can make to take care of your camera. The second thing I'm going to talk about is how to change your lenses. Okay, so this is the camera, and I just hold this button, release button, I hold it. But if I hold it like this, anything can come from the top and get inside. That's not a good practice. If it's raining or if some dust can fall in, and imagine if you are standing under a tree and there is a bird on the top, there is a crow there, you know what can happen, right? So just try to avoid anything like that. To always change the lens like this. Okay, so have the open part facing the bottom and not like this. Okay, this is a recipe for disaster. Always keep it like this. This is how you can change it. Okay, so no amount of dust can get inside if you do it like this, right? The other suggestion I'm going to give you is always sit down and change the lenses, right? Because if you are standing and changing lenses, you will drop the lens sometime. Believe me, I'm little embarrassed to say this, but I have learned it the hard way, right? So I have actually dropped a lens and I could never recover the lens. It was a 1855 lens. I was never able to get it repaired. So always remember, the first thing is that always have the open part. Always have the open part facing the bottom and change the lens. And the second thing is always sit down and change the lens, right? So these are two things I want to tell you regarding the lens. Okay, a lot of people ask me what is fungus and how can I get it clean? How does fungus come into my camera? So the best way of avoiding fungus is to use the camera. If you are using the camera, you will never get fungus. I have stayed in places like Chennai where the humidity is a lot, right? But I have never got fungus because I have been using the camera at least once a week. I have been using the camera. If you are not using the camera, and if you can invest, you can buy a dry cabinet. A lot of people invest in a dry cabinet. It's basically like a refrigerator with the humidity control, where there is no chance of getting any fungus onto the lens, right? If you cannot afford, or if you don't need a dry cabinet, try to keep it sealed in your camera bag with a lot of bubble wrap and silica gel. So that will make sure that there is no fungus growing. Especially during the rainy season, you have to be very careful because the air is so moisture laden that you might get fungus on your lenses. And again, there are some lenses which are more prone to fungus compared to some other lenses. So this is what I have seen from my experience. The next tip I am going to give you is regarding the battery. Now you see, whenever you are charging the battery, you take it off whenever it is done. So sometimes we just keep the battery in the charger and let it go overnight, right? That's not a good practice. Okay, a battery like this might take 3 to 4 hours to charge, and that's enough. If you are giving it more charge, the voltage will increase and that can cause some damage to the camera. So be careful about that. A lot of people ask me, should I keep the battery in the camera or should I keep it separately? Now, because I use the camera almost every day, I keep the battery in the camera all the time. I have never removed the battery from the camera. But if you think that you are not using the camera for a long period of time, say about 6 months, it is absolutely okay to remove the battery and keep it separately. Before you go for a trip, I would like to give you some suggestions. So all these lenses and the camera body and also the SD card has some electronic points. You see, these are the electronic points, if you can see here. So these points, they absorb some moisture and there is a coating on top of that which happens, because of which there is some communication error that happens sometimes. So maybe your focusing will be slow, or sometimes your autofocus will stop working altogether. Okay, so here in the camera also you will see there are some points here. There are these electronic communication points between the camera and the lens. So before you go for a trip, I would suggest you to take a microfiber cloth and just rub it properly here and rub it here as well. So that will make sure that there is proper communication. There is no layer on top of this, and there is proper communication between the camera and the lens. And similar for the SD card as well. So I have this SD card here. Now on the SD card also you will see some electronic points here. Now this is how the camera communicates with the SD card. So all the data being written into the SD card through these electronic points. Now here also sometimes you will find layers. So whenever I go for a trip, before that I make sure that I just clean it off. So I just use a matchstick and just rub it very gently. Don't use a very sharp thing like a knife to clean it. Just use a matchstick or something. You just have to remove these layers from the electronic point. So that will make sure that the communication between the camera and the SD card happens properly. Now there have been some situations where the person coming back from a trip and said that my memory card is not readable. I just asked them to rub these joints and it started working. Schedule a day for your routine maintenance where you clean these electronic points of the SD card, of the camera and of the lens. The other very important tip I'm going to give you is to use the camera strap. Now the strap is given for a reason. So this is how you have to have it on your shoulders. Now a lot of times if I use a like this for the whole day, I get redness here and it hurts. It starts hurting if I am using it for the full day. So there are some better straps which you can buy. There are some black rapid straps which you can buy which are very comfortable. There are some very good companies like Peak Design which make this very ergonomically great straps which you can use, but they are quite expensive though. This comes free with the camera. So if you are using the camera maybe just for a couple of hours, this is just good enough. How do I clean the camera? I use microfiber cloths like this to clean the camera. So I just clean it like this. I also have a brush. Now this is a brush which I use. So this is quite nice. So I just open this brush and clean it like this. So this is one way of cleaning it. And then I also have this blower. So I just use a blower to clean around all these places. So all the dust that is inside the nook and corner of the camera gets clean. So everywhere. So all the different parts of the camera have to be cleaned after you come back from a trip and before you go for another trip. Sometimes when I'm going to wildlife safaris, then I have to clean it every day. So because it's so dusty in the jungles, so you have to clean it every day. This is something very important. Okay, so otherwise sometimes it can happen that your camera stops working in the middle of a trip. So these problems should not happen. And lot of places like this is a technique which I have learned from somebody. So if I blow here, you see all the dust, I am forcing the dust go inside. So what I do, I just suck the dust in. So I'll just suck the dust in. Of course there are some dust goes into my mouth, which is okay, I don't mind, but yeah, this is how I'm going to clean it. So a lot of people use alcohol. So you can also use alcohol to clean the front element of the lens. Okay, so don't use water. Water is not a safe thing to use for a lens. So you can buy this alcohol based products, and you can use a microfiber cloth. You don't need a lot, you just need just a tiny bit, and you can clean it. The other thing you can do is whenever you are cleaning the lens, go from inside to outside. Start from inside and slowly go outside and clean the whole thing. Okay, so these microfiber cloths are very helpful. Buy a couple of them, and whenever you are going from a trip, and make sure they are clean enough. If you are using it for quite some time, you will see this itself has accumulated a lot of dust. So just make sure that whenever you are using one, this is clean. So there is another electronic point here in the camera. So you see this flash unit. So if you are using a flash, this point can also accumulate some dust if you are layer if you are not using it for a long time. So this also happened with a couple of people. Some people called me that my flash is not working, the proper communication is not happening between the flash and the camera. So I just asked them to rub these parts little carefully, and it started working miraculously. The other tip which I would like to give you is, whenever you are going to a place where you are in a extremely cold temperature, like you are inside an AC and you are going out, don't take the camera out immediately. Keep the camera in your bag for some time and let it come to the normal temperature, and then you take it out. If you come out of the AC and then take out the camera immediately, you will see water droplets condensing on the body. Now if it's condensing outside, it is absolutely okay, we can clean it, no problem. But inside, if the condensation happens on the motherboard or on the other electronic parts, then your camera can get short circuited and you will have to face a lot of issues. So just make sure that whenever you are going out, give it some time and then you take the camera out of the bag. The other tip I would like to give you is, always have a cover. So you see a cover for an LCD, a cover for this part, a cover for the lens which is called the filter. So whenever you are using the camera, always use a hood. Cleaning the camera is something very important, and it will avoid a lot of troubles when you are actually on the shoot.